right. Welcome everyone to ActiveProspect's Financial Perspective webinar, ROI to Survive, Marketing at Full Speed Without Crashing into the TCPA. We're fired up to have you with us today. I'm Andrew Bailey, a content strategist here at ActiveProspect, and I'll be moderating this exciting webinar for you. But before we jump into the good stuff, we have to go over some quick housekeeping. On the right of your screen, you'll see two icons. One says chat, the other says questions. The chat icon is for reactions and general comments, sort of like this moderator is great. Just like that. Or more importantly, there's also going to be a comment pinned at the top of this for any time during this webinar if you want to book time to speak to a professional. Pin that for you right now. There we go. All right. As for the questions icon, that's where you'll submit any questions you have for our two expert panelists today. We'll try to address some periodically, but have no fear, we have saved some time for a Q&A at the end. Also, we'll be tossing a few polls your way during our session. No pressure. These aren't SATs. We just want your honest opinion to help steer the conversation. Lastly, if for any reason you have to drop off the webinar early, no worries. A recording will be sent your way tomorrow. Now let's meet our esteemed panelists. Emma, Courtney, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourselves?
Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Bernstein, and I lead our financial services team here at ActiveProspect. We work really closely with marketers to help them scale their lead gen campaigns while staying compliant. So excited to be talking to Courtney and Andrew today, talk about what's working, what's not working, and how we can improve performance without running into a bunch of TCPA headaches.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Courtney. I am part of the team here at Heyflow. I'm a customer marketing manager. I work very, very closely with our clients. I actually transferred from sales. So I have a lot of experience sort of on the ground working with creating funnels and knowing exactly what is effective, what isn't as effective. And I'm super excited to share my experience with you today.
Thank you both for being here today. Let's get into it, shall we? Emma, what are some of the biggest operational challenges marketers face when running lead gen campaigns, especially when it comes to moving leads smoothly throughout the funnel?
Yeah, good question. So this is something that we see a lot with the different marketing teams that we're working with. Obviously, big challenge is usually balancing lead quality with conversion rate. So you want enough questions on a form to be able to qualify the lead, get in good information. Sometimes you honestly want to use the questions to disqualify those potential prospects. Hopefully you get that drop off of somebody realizing, oh, this is not what I thought it was. But if your form is too long, you're going to get drop off anyway. Another big issue we see is building and maintaining trust, which is a big compliance piece. So people are a lot more cautious now. We get a little nervous about putting our information into web forms. So making sure that you're explaining why you're collecting their data, what you're going to use it for, who's going to be contacting them. Obviously, there's the TCPA compliance piece there, but it builds trust and makes sure that people are actually submitting their information. And then finally, user experience. So if you've got a really slow landing page, if CTAs aren't really matching, if branding is doing something weird, especially if you're having these issues on mobile, it's really going to kill momentum.
That leads us perfectly into our first poll of the day. Now, we want to ask the audience and really get a gauge of this based off what Emma just talked about. What is your biggest challenge with compliant lead gen? Getting enough volume without risky sources? Verifying consent across vendors, aligning marketing and compliance, understanding TCPA requirements, which is tough, or not prioritized yet. Please get your votes in now, and we're going to circle back to the results shortly. So the marketing funnel, like broadly speaking, Courtney, how do modern marketers move leads smoothly down the funnel from landing pages to sales?
Yeah, well, I think Emma actually just hit the nail on the head with that one. We're talking about positive user experience. I think at the end of the day, when we're really looking at kind of providing a positive user experience, that's what's going to get leads sort of across the line. That's really what you're trying to do. That's what you're aiming for. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to make the lead or the potential customer feel safe. We're talking about trust elements. Emma did touch on this as well, and we see that here 100%. We want to make them feel safe. We want to provide motivation, a good hook. We want to get them to the end because, hey, I'm actually getting something out of this. And that's what people are concerned with. What we also need to do in making that user experience so positive is really look at kind of making that journey really seamless, frictionless. We want to make it as comfortable as possible, as easy as possible. And, part of all of this, again, as I said, it's clear CTAs. I think Emma said this as well. Clear CTAs, we're going trust building elements, strong hook, mobile optimized. Again, people are really going to be using these forms or funnels on their phone. So, okay, where the thumb doesn't actually move on a mobile phone, you're not going to get someone to click somewhere. So it's really understanding how are people actually going to be interacting with these things? What is actually, or what makes up a positive user experience? And how can I actually meet my potential customer, not even in the middle, but meet them where they're at digitally? Yeah, I think that that's sort of something that you need to focus on to really get people and move them through that lead funnel.
All right, let's go back to our poll real quick and check out the results. Oh, thank you, Blair. Perfect timing. Looks like getting enough volume without risky sources is in the lead, quickly followed by verifying consent across vendors, and then aligning marketing and compliance. You're in the right place if that's one of your issues here. All right, Courtney, in your experience, where do leads typically drop off in the funnel?
I think there's two major points where leads are dropping off. So first of all, we just have sort of bounce rate. We're looking at the very first kind of page or the very first screen that you are showing people. And part of this is if your creative is not matching, if your copy is not matching, if you're using kind of different wording so that people click on a link and it says, hey, get your free quote. And then, I don't know, you come to a page and it says, we're going to provide you with a demo. They think, I've clicked on the wrong link. Immediately that trust is gone and people are just not going to continue through. So that's something that you really need to look out for, because even if it's just too busy, if the CTA isn't clear, if it's not above the fold, which means if I'm not seeing directly where I can click, I'm not actually going to look for it. This is all part of tying into that kind of positive user experience. It's providing people with the ease of actually even just getting through that lead form or that funnel. Ad UX, anything that's not pretty, garish colors, things like that. Those are sort of things on the first page that you really need to watch out for. And of course, and Emma again did touch on this, but we're looking at people aren't as happy to, or they aren't as willing to provide their details. So the contact page, so where you're actually asking, what is your name, or what is your number, what is your email address? People are really, really nervous about doing that. If you haven't built enough trust, for example, or if you're asking for too much at once, so it starts feeling kind of like a form that you would, be filling out, I don't know, like your tax returns or something like that, or you haven't provided enough motivation for people to actually say, hey, I'm getting something out of this. This is where you're really going to see a huge drop off. And it is quite normal to have a bit of a higher drop off here, but we want to minimize that as much as possible, ideally.
It sounds like simplicity is really the answer here. Just try to simplify the process without being overly simple, but less complicated, the better. Is there a silent killer that a lot of companies or brands aren't aware of in the funnel that could be causing some issues?
I think that's really succinct in saying it is about simplicity. And I think something that companies, and I see this quite often, there's too many clicks. So when you have sort of because obviously you want to get people through, you want to have it quick, you're asking a question. And if it's a single answer question, you just have one option, they shouldn't be clicking on the option and then clicking on next. What should happen is they should just be brought through the funnel. You should click on an option. You can say, okay, how old are you? Over 18, click, done. I'm through, I'm on to the next step, so that we don't have to spend so much time going through, clicking next, and it just takes up too much time and it makes that hurdle too high to jump over. And I think that's something that companies really need to be aware of.
But what are a few ways to reduce the friction without oversimplifying it? Like, you still want to be able to get valuable information and get them into your system and have some direction about where to go next. So what would you say is an easy way to reduce the friction that a lot of companies are experiencing?
Yeah, definitely. I think something that's really important and really should be sort of top of mind when we're looking at kind of that qualification process and really understanding, okay, sort of what makes sense is, what information do I need now at this stage? That means that there are probably questions, that are interesting, that are going to help sales down the road. But actually, okay, what do I really truly need to know now? And I'm just going to keep it down to this, because your funnel is not a questionnaire. It is not going to be an entire form. It's not going to be a tax return. You're not going through and asking everything that you potentially want to ask, you need to be really smart about, okay, or strategic about, okay, well, what questions am I asking? And you keep that really simple, really streamlined to the customer or to the potential customer, I suppose. And part of that as well is kind of being able to use things like conditional logic. So you're only asking questions relevant to the person that is actually going through that. So there's no fluff, there's no extra questions, nothing like that. What you can also do is just have it be, I mean, always like as interactive as possible. You want to feel like we're having a dialogue, because I think that's really what makes this so effective, is it being so interactive and feeling like a dialogue. So you're able to sort of ask questions relevant to the potential customer that is going through this. They're able to give an answer that they feel represented by, that they feel identified, that they identify with. So you're getting them through quickly, easy, again, very simple with the clicks, have them going through with those answers and don't have any kind of extra fluff, any faff. We just want to keep it as easy as possible. We want to keep those hurdles, so to speak, very low to the ground so that everyone can jump over them. The higher they get, the more difficult it is, and that's where you're going to start losing people.
Looking back at our first poll question, most of the audience here is really concerned about getting enough volume without risky sources. How is this going to impact lead volume?
I think that's an interesting question, because I think that potentially we shouldn't be too much focused on volume, in the sense that quality is always going to be better than quantity. So with that in mind, obviously we want to get those conversion rates as high as possible, and we want to do, obviously we want to have a really high volume. But what we really want is also, are these leads actually effective, and what is my lead to sale rate? And I think here it's really important about making sure that we keep that in mind. What questions am I asking? Because what information do I absolutely need to know at this stage, so that when we do our outreach, we're going to be as effective as possible. We're going to get those leads turned into sales, and we're really going to kind of increase just the quality and also like the conversion rates where they really matter, because that's going to be the most important thing. And I think, of course, in decreasing friction, I think definitely translates into an increase in conversion. And when we're focused on asking the right questions at the right time to the right people, what we're doing is we're increasing the quality of that as well.
We actually had a question come through, and I think it's a good time to address it now, from an anonymous user. What role do trust building elements like logos, badges, disclosures really play in funnel performance?
They are absolutely everything. They are so important. We're looking at trust building. We're in the financial industry, so obviously this is going to be so important, and this is something that is going to influence whether you have a higher conversion rate as compared to a lower one, or it's going to be one of those factors. Because if people don't feel that they can trust you, they're not going to give you their details. They're especially not going to do it when you're asking questions like potentially, what are your earnings, or what's your budget, or anything that is sort of financially relevant, especially when we're looking at getting kind of more into the nitty gritty of, okay, where are we at? What do you want? Is this going to be a loan? Where do you live? Where do you not? Like, all of these details are so important. So having logos of brands that you've worked with, or having logos of companies that you work with that trust you, reviews, massively important. This is the currency of the digital age. Having legitimate reviews are going to change everything, because that's what people base their opinions on now. And these are the things that are going to get people believing in your brand and moving forward through your funnel. And I think having a trust element everywhere you possibly can, even if it's just, I'm a certified in this, or a badge here, just going through, it's really going to increase that level of trust. And that's definitely something worth doing. I would not even bother with a funnel if you don't have those aspects in there.
Yeah, I think trust is well known as being the foundation for everything that every business should do, but I don't think it should stop there. I think trust should be the foundation, but it should also be at every floor of your company and every
100%.
aspect of the funnel, just to offer that reassurance. As you're
Yeah.
moving down, you're still being taken care of with transparency. Going back, talking about the badges and everything on like a landing page and things like that, I think a great way to find the most optimal way to move people down is through A/B testing. A/B testing can be a powerful way of optimizing conversions. What are some examples of A/B tests that companies can implement to find the best, most efficient solution?
I think A/B testing is absolutely fantastic, absolutely necessary. I think if we're going to look at, okay, what would be the first A/B test that I do? And this is what I always tell my clients, and this is always where we sort of start. It would be the contact details. Now, because it's such a high drop-off rate, and because it's such a simple thing to A/B test, what you can really do is you can say, okay, am I asking for name, company, email, phone number, all in one screen? If yes, probably worth A/B testing to actually split that up into bite-sized pieces, because it makes that commitment that people have a little bit more step by step. So we can say, hey, just what's your name? That's all. It's just a name. That's harmless enough. Go to the next step. Make it easy to get to the next step as well, obviously. And then just like, hey, thanks for your name. And you can actually use some sort of personalization here as well. So you would say, thanks, Courtney. What's your email? Someone puts in their email. And what this does psychologically as well is it kind of sets up that in for a penny, in for a pound. I've already kind of like that poker, I guess, maybe that might make more sense, but kind of like I'm all in, I've already put in so much sort of commitment to this. I may as well just continue on to the end. And also just breaking it up, you're just not asking for too much. It's less overwhelming and people find it just a lot easier to digest. That is a fantastic A/B test. I would always recommend doing that. And then iteratively, what you really need to do is really understand, how are people interacting with this funnel? Where are they dropping off? What are they doing? And where do I really need to start with that A/B test? Because it doesn't make any sense to just sort of spitball ideas and theorize and be like, oh, maybe this could be it. No, it's about understanding, what are people doing? Where are they dropping off? And how can I then change that? And it can be something like, I don't know, changing the wording of a question to make it more clear. It could be changing the answer options of a question so that I have more representative answers. I have fewer answers. We don't want to overwhelm anyone. It's really always keep in mind, it's kind of that simplicity. Like, how can I make this as understandable, as easy to digest as possible? And that's where you start doing your A/B tests. And obviously, I'm pretty sure everyone would probably know this by now, but never kind of start A/B testing for several things all at once. It's always one thing that we really can pinpoint what is working, what is not working.
Apparently it wasn't working for Emma because she dropped off. I think she's just having some technical difficulties. She'll be right back. But Courtney, have you ever run an A/B test that surprised you, either positively or negatively?
Yes, actually. And this happened with a client of ours. They're actually in the healthcare recruiting. They're like the biggest healthcare recruiters here in Europe, actually, and MedWing. And basically, what we did with them is we have what we call the loader in Heyflow. And basically, what it is as an animation, so that once you basically have your leads going through the funnel, you've asked them all the questions, and then you're about to ask them for their contact details. What you can do is add the loader in between that sort of section, and it's just a little animation, and you just add in kind of like a what's the word now? We're just processing your data. Or like, probably don't say it like that because that doesn't sound very good, but we're just processing. We're just going through this, have a little animation, and then it goes to the next screen, and you can say, hey, fantastic, we have that offer for you, or yes, you're successful, or yes, we definitely have kind of something for you. What that does is it, like, psychologically, you feel everyone has a bit of a fear of rejection in them, and this way you feel really kind of satisfied, but also a lot of people really think that their data is being processed in real time, so it makes that kind of like, hey, we just need your details because we've got something for you, much more legitimate. And we A/B tested this with MedWing, and it improved their conversion rate by about 30%. I think it was about 32 or something percent.
Wow.
Which was just massive. Yeah.
Wow. Attendees don't know this, but Emma was actually performing some performance art by showing what it looks like to drop off during the sales funnel. But now she's back in, everything's taken care of. Emma, perfect timing. How does compliance factor into A/B testing?
Good question. I think that this is something that came up quite a bit in this space at the end of last year, beginning of this year, as we all thought we were heading towards completely new TCPA regulations with the new one-to-one consent rules. I saw a lot of people running some very interesting A/B tests where they would A/B test the funnel, but completely leave off any type of TCPA TCPA consent statement pieces. So that just doesn't make a ton of sense. So if you're running an A/B test, you find a variant that works really well, you're going to promote it, and then you start to layer in that compliance piece and you add something else, your results could change dramatically. So what I would recommend to marketers is make sure that that's there from the beginning. Andrew, earlier you talked about trust really being the foundation for all of this. Use compliance as kind of the foundation. We need to have this in all of our forms, in all of our funnels, working with the compliance and legal teams within your business to understand this is what we feel is compliant. These are the statements we want to put out there. This is the font size that it needs to be. This is the color it needs to be. This is the placement. That is your baseline, and then run A/B tests on top of that. So really it should be part of the test plan from the beginning. And the goal is to find out what converts the best within the boundaries of that compliance piece.
We
Emma,
see
we
that as
actually.
well a lot. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, Courtney. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I think that's a really good point, because wording is everything, especially when it comes to compliance. So it's not only about having the right wording to be compliant, but also having wording that your leads or your potential customers are going to understand and respond to, and have them kind of like have that resonate with them. So would fully put my name to that as well. I'll sign off on that.
We had a question come through, Emma, and I think it's fitting for you and you as well, Courtney, from Kevin Carden here in the chat. When you say every page of trust, what does that look like? Like on each page, have a trust client review is what he's getting at. But I think that could also be as simple as same font size on every page. Just have consistency throughout your funnel, just so you have that layered throughout. So people don't feel thrown off by anything or deceived, was my interpretation of it. What would you have to say to that?
I would, from just the TCPA compliance statement, obviously that is showing up towards the end of the form. It's not necessarily something that you're going to have on every single page. And we've talked a little bit about this, but just making sure that's clear, it's easy to read, it's a mark of trust that it exists in the first place. Courtney, if you might maybe want to talk to like where you would put in those reviews or badging.
We see a lot. So I think that when we're looking at financial industry, sometimes we do actually have quite longer funnels potentially than other industries. So if you do find yourself having kind of like 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 questions, it starts getting a little bit long. You can definitely put in like a little client review underneath that. I think for the landing page, I would definitely have kind of more reviews there, maybe like in a carousel type situation, so people can kind of go through there. Because what we're trying to do on the landing page is really just build enough trust that people go into the actual funnel. When we're looking at the questions themselves, Andrew, 100% consistency, making sure everything looks the same, all the colors are the same, the fonts are the same, so that we don't have any discrepancy. But also you can have like little certified badges, and also kind of like a link out to private, like data privacy and data processing and how all that happens, just underneath the questions, so that people, if they do scroll or they can see it, they do feel very safe, just to make sure it doesn't feel kind of like a naked sort of web page in just the ether of the internet. That's sort of what we're looking at. It doesn't have to be too big. It just has to be there. And I think that's enough.
I think that's great for reassurance too. Just as indecision might creep in further down the funnel or something, but then once again you see like, hey, certified here, trusted by these companies, that's going to make you feel better and just kind of mitigate the chance for any buyer's remorse in the end.
Definitely.
Now, Courtney, just kind of like broadly, if you had to pinpoint one non-negotiable best practice to streamline customer movement down the funnel, what would that be?
Really, I think at the end of the day, it has to be sort of the simplicity of everything, like really tying into the concept of a positive user experience. Keep things simple, keep things easy, and people will follow through. Think of it, as I kind of already said, as hurdles. Like every single step of the way is a hurdle for people. So how do we get them across the line? We need to keep those hurdles low to the ground. So it's about really making sure we're just providing something that is of quality, that is really fun or simple or easy to use, so that we can really get people just following through and making sure that they have a great time while they're doing it. Because quite often, these kind of funnels are going to also be the first experience that people have with your brand. So if you're offering something that is fun to go through, then they're actually going to have a really positive experience and a positive association with your brand. And that's exactly what we want, because moving forward, that is going to be the association that they think of when they see your logo or they have anything to do with you. So keep things really just simple, and make sure that people are going through the really positive kind of user experience.
Does that apply to all 3 levels, or is that just more top of the funnel?
I think it applies all 3 levels. We're really kind of looking at the top, middle, bottom. Like, keeping things simple for people is really what they want. It really resonates with people. It makes them feel like you've actually thought about their experience, you've thought about them, you've actually made the effort to really meet them where they are, instead of kind of making them, run a marathon and then jump, massive hurdles and do all of that, because no one wants to do that. No one has the time to do it. This is not, how we like to spend our free time, is going through incredibly annoying and long forms just to be sold something, or just to get somewhere. It's just not feasible. It's just not realistic. And we really want to keep those best practices under the umbrella of simplicity, I think.
Let's go to a quick question here from an anonymous user. For either of you, what metrics do you look at to know if your funnel is both performant and compliant?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I mean, what metric are you looking at if it's performant? We're really looking at sort of a plethora of things. I think we're looking at conversion rates, obviously. How is this converting? Because that's a good indicator of whether people are actually converting. When we're looking at compliant, it's really about those check boxes. It's really about opting in. It's really about understanding, okay, is the wording that I have in my funnel compliant? If yes, are my leads actually opting into this, and how compliant is that list of leads that I have that actually convert from that? And then looking at kind of conversion rates, also really understanding, okay, from those leads, how many is it leads to sale, and really understanding sort of further down the funnel and further down the sales process, what is actually happening with these leads, and are they actually viable? If I'm selling these leads to other people, are they actually able to use them? Are they able to contact them? Does this actually fall under the umbrella of a compliant lead, and am I providing people with quality? I think those sort of are the main metrics that I would think of to do immediately.
As Where do partnerships factor into this? Because as beneficial as they can be, do they open up any potential cracks for non-compliance?
Yeah, I think it just depends on how or who has control over this. Like, what are they doing? How much control do I actually have over my funnel? What am I like? What do I need? Do they know what I need? Are we operating on the same level of compliance? Do we understand everything the same way? It really needs to be kind of open lines of communication. It really needs to be on the same page and really understanding what is in the funnel. What do I need, or what do my partners need, or how are they working with this, and are we all on the same page?
I completely agree with this. And I think it's something that we've seen people talk about a lot more. Our team's been at a few conferences recently where one of the biggest, or the most, like the largest poll answer was around, how do I get more volume without exposing myself to risk or opening myself up to risky sources? And one of the things that we've been hearing a lot is know who your vendors are, have those conversations, ask them about their approach to compliance and see what they say. It should probably be a red flag to you if you're talking to a lead vendor or anybody that you work with and they don't know what TCPA is, they can't point to their TCPA statement, and they're not really willing to have that conversation with you. Anybody reputable in the space is going to know what they need to do to be compliant. So absolutely agree with Courtney. Have a transparent conversation about what you're expecting and understand what their process is.
That leads us perfectly into our second poll of the day. How confident are you in your funnel's compliance? Very confident, somewhat confident, not confident, let's hope for not too many of that, or unsure how it works. Please get your votes in now, and again, we will circle back to the results in a few minutes. So we've touched on compliance today quite a lot here in the last few minutes, But Emma, what can companies do to keep compliance from being a burden, not just a box you have to check? Or if we want to say the quiet part out loud, how can companies move customers faster down the funnel without breaking the law?
Yeah, absolutely. And I get it. It's compliance is probably a marketer's least favorite topic of conversation. They want to get more people through the funnel. They want to improve conversion rates. They've got MQL or SQL targets to hit. But speed is important, but so is staying protected and making sure you're protecting your brand and not opening yourself up to risk. So we've talked a lot about this today. We've harped on that simplicity piece. So making sure that your consent language is really clear and concise. Is this in plain English or is it in legalese? Can anybody understand it? That transparency is really going to, again, build trust, lower friction, and let people know why you're collecting their data and exactly what you're going to do with it. Something that I've seen a lot in this industry, especially if you are buying third-party leads, that consumer, that business is seeing an ad, and then they are seeing a brand and they're going through and they're putting in their information, and then they hit submit, and all of a sudden they are getting phone calls from completely different businesses that they have never really heard of. They're very confused. In some cases, they thought that the actual lead buyer or the lead seller was the person that's actually selling the end product. So making sure that you let people know exactly what is going on. Another thing I see quite frequently is a call to action around get a quote. A lot of people are expecting then to randomly receive a quote in their inbox. As we know, that's often not the case. It's somebody calling them or texting them or trying to set up time to talk. As much as possible, make that clear in your CTAs, make that clear in your TCPA consent language. So naming the partners that are actually going to be reaching out to them, letting them know that they're going to receive a call, letting them know that they're going to receive a text. If you are doing any type of using an auto dialer or any type of regulated technology, make sure you're calling that out as well. But it helps to ease that hesitation when people are like, oh, I'm giving my information and this is exactly what's going to happen with it. And then obviously a plug for trusted form. Make sure you've got that going on. It'll sit behind the scenes. It's going to capture that consent statement. It's going to capture that user actually consenting to be contacted. But it's not impeding the user experience. It's not impacting the speed of the form at all. So ideally, it's about making sure that your compliance is invisible, but still effective.
Great. Let's go back to the results of our second poll now. If we can get those up on the screen. Okay, looks like like most people are somewhat confident. I feel like that kind of expected. Some people are very, and a few not confident. So glad you're here today, learning up some things. All right. Emma, is there a false dichotomy that exists between compliance and conversions? Like, if that is true, how can companies use compliance to bolster conversions?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say it's probably one of the biggest misconceptions that we see. Again, it was a big conversation that came out during all the talk about one-to-one consent ahead of what we thought were new FTC regulations. And we heard it a lot. People thought that you needed to choose between a compliant form that met all of the necessary regulations or getting good results. There was a lot of hesitation around if I add in a TCPA statement, if I have a checkbox, if I make that statement a little bit bigger or bolder or a different font color, it's going to take my conversions. Nobody's going to come through the form and I'm going to lose a lot of money and won't get that volume. But it's really not true. You don't need to make that choice. When you're transparent, when you're building that trust, it's actually going to drive better conversion rates. And those leads are going to be better quality. So Courtney talked about this earlier, that this isn't just a volume conversation. It's also performance-based. You could have a 2-question form that doesn't really tell you anything, and you might get a lot of people click through and submit information. It doesn't mean that those are going to be good quality leads, but when the consumer knows exactly what to expect from every part of that process, when they've knowingly opted into it, you're going to see not just your conversion rates on the page increase, but you're going to see contact rates increase and opportunity rates increase, your sales team or your call center teams aren't going to be fighting an uphill battle against people who have absolutely no idea why they're calling. So compliant leads are much less likely to get disqualified and lead to a ton of wasted time and, frankly, wasted money, and also less likely to result in legal complaints as well. So really, compliance supports performance, not the other way around.
I like that. Very succinct. We have a question here that kind of ties into that. How do you screen or vet third-party lead providers to ensure they're TCPA safe?
Great question. So for any lead buyers out there specifically, this is something that you really want to keep an eye on. Courtney talked a little bit about A/B testing and some of the tools that marketers are using. So sometimes you can run into compliance issues and it's not malicious. It's just something that's often not front of mind. People are thinking when conversion rate optimization, they're like, how can I change this CTA? Could we change a color? Could we add a picture? Do we change questions? Do we change the order of the questions? And sometimes that TCPA statement changes along with it and lines get removed or the text gets made smaller or it goes from something that was black to very, very light gray where you can't see it anymore. Or maybe it goes down to the bottom of the page. It's not that it's on purpose, but especially as a lead buyer, that's something that you want to know because it's opening you up to risk. So I imagine a lot of people on the call today are using Trusted Form and retaining those certificates from any of their marketing activities. But what a lot of people aren't necessarily doing is running any audits on those certificates, running audits on the leads that they're buying to ensure that the compliance statements, the TCPA statements that are coming through are in line with what they're expecting. And maybe if you've just started up a partnership, you're looking at that TCPA statement, you're happy with the way that form looks. 3 months down the line, that company is running an A/B test, something changes. And I don't really know any marketers who are constantly looking at every single vendor form that's being run, that's sending them leads on a daily basis. That would be almost impossible.
Sounds
So
like a lot of
sometimes,
work.
yeah, you might have done everything. You might have, like, you did the vetting at the beginning, something changed, you didn't realize that. So I'd always recommend coupling Trusted Form Verify with retaining those certificates. It allows you to automate some of that process. You're going to see that consent language coming through in real time. It's going to tell you if something, or it's going to flag something that maybe sits outside of what you're comfortable with. It'll tell you if that language changed. You could reject things, or you could just go back to your vendor and have a conversation about, hey, we're getting some new TCPA language from you that we weren't expecting. This doesn't work for us. Let's have a conversation about that. So 100% would recommend running some audits with your vendors. And on the seller side or the publisher side, make sure you're keeping this in mind. Make sure that your marketers understand that they're running these tests when they're setting up a new form, that compliance piece is always baked in. And if you are thinking about changing anything, it builds a lot of trust by proactively going to your lead buyers, letting them know that you're thinking about changing some stuff around, and make sure that that still works for them, because you definitely don't want to get into a case where you made a change that you didn't think was a big deal. Your leads end up getting rejected. It ends up being non-compliant, and that really breaks trust. I think the polls have kind of shown that trust with vendors is a big piece. You open yourself up to a lot of risk when you don't control that funnel. So sellers, publishers, please proactively have those conversations with your buyers as well.
We saw in our most recent poll that the majority of voters were somewhat confident, but there were a few that were not confident as well. What are some red flags that signal compliance risk that are easily identifiable?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is unfortunately something that we also see quite often. So unclear, overly complex language. Again, does this look like micro font legalese with a lot of things that nobody can understand? If users can't understand what they're agreeing to, that's a big problem. There have been numerous TCPA lawsuits for this reason, where somebody thought they had great consent language. It was deemed to be ambiguous and unclear. brand gets in trouble and is out a lot of money. Or hiding consent language in really long terms and conditions, or thinking that it's sufficient to just have that as part of like a privacy policy or T's and C's at the very bottom of a page. That definitely doesn't count as valid disclosure. And then not being explicit about who is going to be contacting those buyers and how they are going to be contacted. So are you using auto dialers? Are you using SMS? Is it you that's calling? Is it a lead buyer that's calling? Making sure all that's spelled out. And if those things don't exist, let's raise some red flags for sure.
All right. Final thoughts before moving to our questions here at the end. Emma and Courtney, for both of you, if there is one thing you want attendees to take away from today's session, what would that be?
On my side, it is that compliance and performance are not enemies. You don't have to pick one or the other. Compliant leads, where somebody knows exactly what they're opting into and exactly what that process is going to be, they'll convert higher on forms. They'll convert higher once they get in front of a sales team. So those lead to stronger ROI. Don't just do compliance to check the box. Make sure it's part of your process from the beginning.
I love that. I think on my side, and I think I've definitely mentioned this one or two times already, but positive user experience. Keep that in mind in all of this, in everything that you're offering your lead, your potential customer. Make sure it's a good time for everybody involved. We want to make it easy, and we just really want to provide a positive user experience, because that's tied in with having compliance actually be a growth lever. We're really looking at something that's going to be strong, it's going to be powerful, and it's going to be high performing and also compliant. And that's, at the end of the day, I think what we want.
Oh, thank you both. Before we get into our Q&A, it's time for another quick poll question. What is your next step after this webinar? Audit lead vendors, review consent flows, add verification tech, talk to legal compliance? Not sure yet. If you're still not sure, I highly encourage you to click the link in the pinned comment in the chat now. Let's move to our Q&A section before we finish up here today. If you haven't gotten your questions in for Emma and Courtney yet, there's still time. Just be sure to use the question tab on the right. All right, let's start with this one. For either of you, I'll open it up to the floor. What are some ways to align compliance and marketing teams, especially in fast-paced environments?
I see that this really differs across the board. Some teams, especially in highly regulated industries like FinServe or insurance, you generally have a general counsel or head of compliance that is pretty insistent on signing off on any new vendor partner, any TCPA language. So that is the case for some businesses, but more often than not, we see a big disconnect here, where, again, maybe at the start of a partnership, everything was aligned, and then things kind of change and they realize that nobody's actually talked in a few months. So one thing that I would recommend is penciling in a really regular sync at least once a quarter with those teams. Make sure that they understand what you're running, that compliance is aligned with it. And also, like, they understand the risks. We talk to general counsels and heads of compliance all the time that, it's a business at the end of the day. They are not by any means trying to be a sales prevention team. They are there to protect the brand. So having those open and honest conversations and making sure that they have visibility on what is going on, and that anybody you especially bring into your marketing team is briefed on the compliance side ahead of time. Make that part of your standard operating procedures, that, hey, if you're running an A/B test, this is our gold standard for compliance. We don't deviate away from this, so you need to build on top of it.
Courtney, you have a follow-up?
No, I just fully agree. I think that was nail on the head.
Excellent. Another question here. If someone's just getting started with TCPA safe lead gen, where should they focus first? Where do they start?
So I would say, if you are a current ActiveProspect customer, something that we do quite often is help to match buyers and sellers. We work with a lot of really amazing publishers, aggregators, and brands that are generating really high quality compliant traffic. So speak to your account manager, and we're always happy to make some introductions. But have a bit of a checklist. Understand first what you need to do to be TCPA compliant. Make sure you're doing that for your own first-party data. That's always a good starting point. And then knowing that anybody you reach out to, do they meet those same requirements? Kind of have that checklist there, so you know that any new conversations you're going into, you've got that covered.
I was going to say the same thing, is also just make sure to have conversations with people who know exactly what's going on. And that's on both the compliance side and also the lead generation side, just to make sure that you're doing everything in your power and you're getting the information from people who are really, or companies who know exactly what they're doing, and just use that expertise and implement it into your own processes.
Honestly, it kind of ties back into the first question about aligning compliance and marketing teams, but just doing it throughout the company. Just keeping everybody on the same page is a great place to start, and continually staying like in touch with the compliance team at your company. Another question here, a little more broad, kind of, you can take it wherever you want. What is the best or most recognizable badge to achieve, or that you could put on your website? What's a badge that you see on a website that you're like, man, that makes me feel good?
I think this really, really depends on the industry, who you're working with, and what's going to be most important. Just off the top of my head, thinking about sort of if we're looking at healthcare, not quite what we're talking about today, but being HIPAA compliant and having that badge for HIPAA compliance is incredible. The difference that having that badge makes is just it's night and day. So really looking at your industry, what's going to be important, where you can be certified, what you need to be certified for to be compliant or to be trustworthy. That's what you should be researching. I think that's going to be the most effective. With regards to reviews, it's not quite the same thing, but also making sure that you have reviews on legitimate websites like Google, I don't know, Trust Radius, YouTube, all those sorts of things that people can actually go to and recognize, hey, this is legitimate, and I actually trust this.
All right, last question here. I'm not quite sure I know what GHL is. How do you integrate with GHL?
Go high level. I'm assuming. Correct me,
Sounds
please,
good to
if
me.
I'm wrong. Well, Heyflow specifically has a native integration, which basically just means you have to click sign into your GHL and it's all there. So the way that we do it is all of your questions you get to put in your own, and I just can't think of the word right now, but you can map each answer into your GHL. So you have like name, like each category. What's the word I'm looking for? Someone will think of that word, and that's exactly what I'm thinking of. But you'll have like, I don't know, like name, address, phone number, all of that will then automatically be mapped straight into GHL. So it goes automatically. Otherwise, if I am wrong on GHL, no idea.
It would be funny if they meant something totally different, but that was a great answer either way.
I was like, hey, Heyflow can do this amazingly, so I'm just going to use it for that.
All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you so much to Emma and Courtney for making time for this valuable discussion. And a big thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your day and for participating in this webinar. Your involvement turns these webinars into real conversations and not just lectures. Please mark your calendars and join us in 2 weeks on August 20th for our next webinar, From the Ground Up, Growth Strategies from Home Service Pros. And although it's geared toward home service professionals, the strategies discussed will apply to any industry, and you might even see a familiar moderator on that webinar as well. There will be a link in the chat to register now. Lastly, if you'd like to continue this conversation, please reach out to us via the pinned comment in the chat or respond to our final poll. Again, I'm Andrew Bailey. Have a great day. Stay compliant. I'll see you in 2 weeks.